All right, welcome to Valuable Coaching Volleyball Edition on this fine Thursday. Today we're going to talk about building culture within your team. This is something a lot of the coaches that we've spoken with so far have really talked about, and they've all been kind of unique in their own way about how they go about building kind of this team bonding and culture. And what I've seen at least is it's not always directly revolving around winning. I think some of it we've seen it leads to winning, but that's not the word that they ever bring up, is that, we're a culture of winning games or winning matches. We have to go do this. So, I'd be curious to know how you kind of build some of the culture around your teams. I know you're a very energetic guy, a lot of fun. And I've been at some of your practices before. You like to throw in some fun other games and things, allow those student athletes to express themselves a little bit. But how do you build your culture?
That's a really good question. And when I think culture is a huge buzzword last, I would say like 3 or 4 years. I think if you're a coach getting interviewed at the high school, JV, even college, that's going to come up. It's like, Coach, what's your philosophy? What's your culture look like? So to me, philosophy kind of looks like this. And my philosophy, it's pretty simple. Keep it simple, silly, as we like to say. My coaching philosophy is we teach life skills through the game of volleyball. So that's simple. And this is what I mean by it. And then I think culture is like kind of the pillars of success, and they tie into the philosophy. So what I mean is, of course, when I enter a program, I like to scan it. If I can talk to the previous coach, I like to look at the previous record. I like to look the resources around the program. Where is it located? Is it a blue collar town? Are we in an affluent area? Whatever it is. So I'll just speak of my last school, the school that I'm at right now. I've been huge on kids wearing ties on game days. I think it's great for culture. I think it shows that you take the program seriously. For a boys program, I think it shows that it teaches kids how to get prepared. I think it shows, it gives them a standard of today's a game day. We don't do that at Bishop's because they already wear ties every game day. So what I've kind of showed them is Jim Harbaugh has this video. It's actually really good. It's about blue collar. And it's about blue collar workers and about a shirt. And it said his name Jim on it. And the point is he was working at Stanford at the time. And his whole message is he threw on a blue collar shirt and it had his name on it. And he said, look, you think you hit a home run and you got to Stanford because you're at Stanford. He's like, you're at first base right now. The reason you're at Stanford is your parents got you there. You've come from usually a situation where they paid for it. You've gotten tutors, and most often the time that's the case. And when I was at Bishop's, when I started scanning their team, is to be true to my philosophy, we're still teaching them life skills, but the life skills that I've been working with them on is like, hey, when we leave a gym, let's clean up all the chairs when we're on the road team. And let's help the custodians, and let's show that we're well-rounded student athletes. And what's cool is the athletes have bought into that, and the parents have. And I've gotten good feedback of like, yeah, we want. And at the end of the day, I think parents want their children to be well-rounded. I don't care what walk of life they're from. And so that's been kind of our culture where, if at Bishop's, when we get a team meal, we write a thank you card, and I do that with any of my teams. But I would say that is kind of our culture, where everything at the end of the day is this teaching us a life skill? Is this life skill going to help us in volleyball? And is it also going to help us in our everyday life? And that's the culture that I'm trying to establish, whether I'm at Bishop's, Wave, a community college, and I think at the end of the day, culture, you got to have passion about it, and it's got to be something that you take pride in. And not that the program's about me by any means, but if I'm the one kind of preaching it and enforcing it, I got to believe in it. So that's what we're doing at Bishop's, and we've had some success with it.
Yeah, I can speak to my personal experience a little bit. I really like John Wooden's Pyramid of Success. So, I kind of use that as a model to create culture via just kind of going up the pyramid and looking at the different steps. And I think trying to, like you said, it teaches life skills. I mean, those are all things that carry over. They're not just about volleyball, and they're not just about John Wooden, coach basketball. It's not just about basketball. And I think we too often just want to jump in there and be gung ho and make the culture all about winning, but that's not winning as a product of that. I mean, I think whether it's Pete Carroll, he kind of has a pyramid too. At the top of it, at the top is knowing you're going to win, but there's all these other things underneath. Same thing with John Wooden's pyramid there's all these steps that bring you to that top of that pyramid that results in winning. I really like to be able to connect with my players individually too, and create that culture knowing that they have somebody that they can trust and come talk to. I think that's important as coaches. If you at any level, even college students need that. I think we've talked about that with a couple of college coaches, but having kind of an open door where they can come to you and let you know what's going on, and you can feel like you can help them out.
I think you said something that was awesome. You're like, if you do your culture right, the winning will take care of itself. Yeah. In a nutshell, that's what you said. And my thing is also with younger coaches, or sometimes a lot of coaches, it's fascinating when you ask them what their philosophy is. I think they want to sound very scholarly and very in depth. So they give you this like really long answer, and it's all over. And I would just encourage coaches, your philosophy should be really simple. So when you just say it to a parent, or say it to an AD, or say it to your spouse or whatever, it's just like a sentence, and it's something you believe in. But that sentence means so much, because like for us too, it fits in my philosophy and culture is we're really like, it's just Coach Fisher taught me something. I played for him. He's at University of Pittsburgh. He said, the best programs at the end of the day, the players wear the emotions of the coach. And I do believe in that, and if you look at a lot of the coaches we've rattled off, like a Bobby Knight coach, hey, say what you want about him, but his kids were serious. They were nose to the grind. They played tough, and they played hard for him. And so at the end of the day, where I know the programs that I'm involved with, when they generally thrive, is we just communicate a lot, just like you talked about. And we're all about communication, and we're not above anyone and no one's below us. So like when the custodian comes in to clean up the gym, all of our players know the custodian's name, and we talk to the custodian, and we generally care about that. Or we're really, as you know, I'm a community guy, so I'm really into, and a lot of people don't do it and they think it's a distraction, but it's worked beautifully for my programs. I'm really into guest coaching, and I bring in community leaders from outside, whether it's the police chief, whether it's the fire chief, whether it's a surgeon, and they just sit on our bench, and then they just say a little story, and they talk shop with our kids before the match. And it's our culture. And if I went into another program and that wasn't their culture, it wouldn't work. It takes time. But what's cool is I think when your coach culture's flowing and things are going, like you said, the wins take care of itself. Okay. And I think you can honestly establish your philosophy and culture in any environment. You just got to pick and choose. Like for me, like I'm not going to teach the Bishop kids the importance of wearing a tie. Like that's a great life skill. Yeah. I'm not going to teach them. They do that every day. Yeah. Where at another school, maybe that would be. And like when I was a community college coach, we did do that. So I think you can still stress your culture and philosophy in the environment you're in.
Yeah, well, and with that too, I think as club and high school coaches, especially, like I said, at least at college, you're recruiting a certain type of kid, and you're kind of looking for some of those traits. But in high school and even club, I mean, you don't necessarily have that luxury. You're kind of given a group of kids to choose from. And that was one of my concerns when I first got back into high school coaching was, well, I know kind of what my philosophy now is at this point. Is it going to work there? And you know what? You need to make sure you trust it, because the first few games, maybe the first tournament, I didn't have all the buy-in of the players quite yet. We were doing good. I mean, it wasn't like we were at odds with each other, but they weren't quite. They were still doing some of the things that they were doing with the club coaches, that they had gotten from previous coaches. And sometimes it resulted in looking like they were playing kind of tight. And then I know for me, sometimes I was a little frustrated because I was like, well, come on, I'm allowing you some freedom and you're not taking it.
Yeah.
But after we kind of worked through that and we worked through a couple losses, and maybe a tough tournament, all of a sudden the rest of the year became really easy.
Yeah.
As long as I trusted it, like you said, and stuck with it. So I think that's also where coaches, especially like you said, young coaches you need to develop your philosophy and then stick with it for that whole season and not try and just change just because you have a loss here and there, or just, maybe you're a favored team, but you have a close match. Like, you don't need to blow everything up and do something different.
Yeah, and stick to it, because generally at the end of the day, to take a varsity job or even definitely college, you have to get interviewed. And generally 90% of interviews, they talk to you about your philosophy.
Yeah.
So you have to show your boss, like, yes, I believe in my philosophy. But what's fascinating is you brought up a point. At the college level, you can recruit to your philosophy. You can say, hey, I like this club. They're my kind of kids. That's great. And I think building a philosophy and changing philosophy and culture at the college level, I'm not saying it's not hard. I think it's really hard because your job's a little bit more on the line. Your leash is shorter. I get that. What's fun at the high school level, the challenge is you don't get to recruit to your culture, but what is cool if it works, and I've seen it in the best ones that I've seen in San Diego, is the student athlete shows up to the program because he already knows the culture, knows the coach, and it's already instilled in him as a 6th, 7th, or 8th grader. He or she knows, like, this is Coach Todd at Bishop's. This is exactly how we do things. And that's when you're like, wow, that coach is really good. He's got great buy-in. He's already got 6th and 7th graders believing in his and her system. So that's why I also think sometimes people at the high school are like, well, culture's got to be tough and philosophy because it just turns over so quick and you don't know who you're going to get. I'm like, I think it's just as valuable, if not more, because great coaches, I feel, at the high school level, because the level tends to be a little lower. Like in San Diego, the level is very depleted. Like there's a lot of high schools, and it's like, if you have a great culture and philosophy, you watch those coaches, like, they win. Like, and it's pretty cool. And at that college level, it's harder to navigate through, because a lot of college coaches, that's what they do for a profession, and their philosophies, and they're pretty good and they still lose. But the high school level, if you have a good philosophy and buy-in and do it for 6 or 7 years, generally the program is pretty good.
Yeah. And the other thing with that too is, if you're a varsity coach or if you're a JV coach, you're going to have kids even right there at that school looking up to the next level. So if you're a JV coach, you got freshmen that are watching your team and going, wow, those players really seem to enjoy playing for that coach. And your philosophy could be completely different. I mean, there's times where, there's a lot of disconnect between the varsity, JV, and freshman coach. I think that's something that, if you are a varsity coach out there, I think you need to try and do a great job of building a philosophy all the way through, because if it's vastly different, then you're going to have, some frustrations and some bumps, especially as the varsity coach when you're receiving new players, if those other coaches aren't having some buy-in to that. I think this is a great talk today about culture. I think it's something, like you said, it's a buzzword. I think it's what kind of has come up in a lot of our previous interviews with coaches. And, I think it's something that's really important. I think it's something that's often overlooked, especially too, for us, we went through it as teachers in college. And so we kind of had to develop some of these philosophies and stuff, at least a little bit. When you're young, you still think you kind of know more than you do. And then also with that, you're also a little nervous to make sure you do things right. So you start losing and find, you want to change things up, but
I think it's fascinating that it's totally a buzzword, but what I find so interesting, and I've been guilty of this, trust me, but I find it fascinating that everyone's like, yeah, culture and philosophy is so important. And then when you behind, just in a very relaxed environment, go, hey, yeah, coach, what's your philosophy? And they'll just rattle off something that you're like, that's pretty long, or I don't know what you just said. And so I would encourage all you long coaches, or all you new coaches or coaches listening, establish a philosophy. It's okay if it's simple, and because it is true. I think it is a buzzword, and I'm comfortable talking about culture and philosophy, but A lot of people, sadly, a lot of coaches don't know how to do it because they can't put it all together.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
It's hard, but one thing that that really helps build that culture is having some different activities and things that we do with your team. I know Kevin's talked a little bit about going out in the community, partnering with people, community service, those things. But tomorrow we're going to talk a little bit about some fun activities you can do that kind of fit our theme, both of building culture, but also keeping things simple. You don't do anything crazy over the top in order to get buy-in to some of these fun activities. So, for kind of a fun Friday tomorrow, we're going to take a look at some fun activities that you may be able to do with your team. And again, you'll have to obviously assess your environment a little bit and know what your resources are. But hopefully there's some ideas here that you guys can take tomorrow and roll with. So we'll be back here tomorrow, talk a little bit of some fun activities and some fun stuff that we do with our volleyball teams.
Hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you like the shirts we're wearing in today's episode, they got a cool logo provided to us by One Stone Apparel. Check them out at onestoneapparel.com. Great shirts, apparel, PE uniforms, volleyball uniforms, anything you need. Check them out, onestoneapparel.com.